A number of restaurant owners in Birmingham, many of whom are based here in Westside, have decided to challenge the government's decision to place Tier 3 restrictions in the hospitality sector. Today I'm here to meet Sam Morgan, who is leading this class action. Sam, you're making an application for a judicial review. What does that mean?
So a judicial review is where we make an application to the High Court for the review of a public body's decision behind a certain process. In this instance, it's the hospitality sector being placed into the Tier 3 restrictions. Well, our first primary kind of objective is to understand more. Currently, the hospitality sector, we feel that we're currently in the dark into the actual reasoning behind the hospitality sector being under such draconian and rigorous restrictions that are essentially preventing us from trading. We'd like to understand more about the reasoning behind that.
How many restaurants do you represent?
Initially, as of yesterday, it was 256. That's increasing at the moment, day on day, so we expect to be around the 300 mark by the end of today.
Now, I suspect that this is all based on the Coronavirus Act 2020. This is relatively new emergency legislation in response to the pandemic. What part specifically of that act are you challenging today?
Well, as it stands at the moment, our consideration and our review or request for review via a judicial review is actually around the constraints that are being placed on the hospitality sector specifically. We as a sector completely appreciate that we need to play our part in stemming this terrible virus. What we need to understand primarily as a sector, if we're going to be subject to closures and we're going to have to invest in our businesses for the future, is the reasoning behind those closures. That's the primary basis for this. The government have released information on the 27th of November behind the reasoning of the hospitality sector. However, we are dubious about that information, given that a significant part of it is aimed at businesses from the Far East and is dated back in February 2020.
The Prime Minister has been very consistent in reassuring the public that he's based all of his decisions on the science available. This is a decision that's been supported by the Cabinet, it's been supported by Birmingham City Council and indeed Birmingham's own Chief Medical Officer. Can they all be wrong?
We're not suggesting that they're wrong. What we're actually suggesting is that we would like to see that information. We'd like to be convinced ourselves. We have a moral and a legal obligation to protect our business and also our staff. If you're expecting us to do that, then you need to be transparent with the sector. And then secondary to that, if you're asking us to contribute to the national effort to stem this virus, we're quite happy to have our businesses closed, but in turn there needs to be adequate support measures in place to support the industry through this challenging situation. We can't on the left-hand side say that we're going to be issuing a £3,000 grant, when on the right-hand side, HMRC sends a bill to a closed hospitality business in excess of £9,000 for employers' national insurance. How is that supporting the sector through this challenging period?
Now, application for judicial review is quite expensive. I think it can cost up to around £25,000 a day and sort of a penalty, probably an exposure in the region of £50,000 if you are unsuccessful. Can you afford to lose this action?
Can we afford not to take the action?
When do you expect the outcome of the decision?
Well, I think there's been a development on that late last night. The West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, has reached out to the Birmingham Hospitality Group. We are recognising that the Mayor is in constant dialogue with the UK government in respect of very similar line questioning that we have in respect of our judicial review. I think following the Mayor reaching out to us, it's a proactive approach for us to give the Mayor the opportunity to exercise all of the avenues that he's looking to exercise before we place the government under any more due pressure in respect to this matter. As such, we will be taking steps to slow down our process slightly to allow the Mayor to follow up on his first inquiries before we reach any more final decision.
So that was Sam, who will later today present his petition to the Prime Minister's office. It's a very interesting story. Let's hope his class action will result in everybody getting around the table and having that conversation.